here we are looking at America First immigration, which is counter to the immigration industrial complex and the India lobby, which controls essentially our immigration in the United States today. We are for American workers. We are for American industries remaining American. We are for, or we are against offshoring. And we're for the middle class. We're for small town and rural America. We are just for America because you know what? We love America. We love Americans. And we want America to be great. And we want this to be the golden age of America. And so this is called America First Immigration, but it comprises also the idea of labor and offshoring, because they're all overlapping. And so today, my name is Elizabeth Farah, by the way. I'm a very bad introducer to the show. This is the Elizabeth Farah Show, and I'm Elizabeth Farah. And with me once again is the beautiful Amanda Bartolotta, who I call Amanda Louise. And she is our extraordinary reporter who covers the immigration scene, offshoring, and the immigration industrial complex, which is, I like to say, or I think I accurately like to say, is a criminal cartel acting on every possible avenue of fraud and abuse and nefarious actions to subvert our lawful, though horrible, immigration and visa programs to benefit one foreign country, India. And no, we're not against Indians. And I just made a video that it is utterly ridiculous to call this racist. If they were Germans or Russians or any other country on the face of the earth, no matter what color, we would be against a foreign invasion, subverting our laws, draining our economy, offshoring, facilitating the offshoring of our industries, taking American jobs, and suppressing their wages. How can that be racism? No. India just happens to be the chief offender. And this is why, because India is so good at this, that we have to focus on India. So I didn't plan on putting all that into my introduction. Actually, I didn't even plan my introduction. That was off the cuff, but always, yeah. Thank you for joining me, Amanda Louise Bartolotta. We've got a great news story for you. It's up at WorldNetDaily, and we're going to go over it today. And of course, it's by Amanda Louise. And I'm going to go ahead and see if I can put this up on the screen because I never do that. And I'm going to start practicing my skills. And let's see if it's not too bad. So we've got it named How a Little Known Visa Became a Big Business. Amanda, introduce us to what this is all about.
Yeah, so similar to some of the stories that we've covered in the past, once again, we have a middleman that is taking advantage of our immigration system and creating a business model out of selling the American dream. This isn't about trying to help other, immigrants. It's not about trying to, develop their own nation or contribute to our own that they're in. It is about selling the American dream and making sure that that goes to the highest bidder in some cases. This is a interesting story because it's multiple businesses. And I think with Miles' story, it was the same thing where it took one core actor and he created multiple subsidiaries that all acted in concert to facilitate, the student American working dream. And in this case, it's the entrepreneur's American dream. And this is just two of several brands that they own. But these are the two core actors in the story, Mahindra Associates and the Startup Business Bureau, who together work to sell the American dream. One side of it is the consultants, and the other side of it is selling the business out of the box.
Let's back up, though, here for a minute, because what I want to do first, for the benefit of everybody who's not an expert at all of this and every one of the alphabet visa programs, first let's identify what is the immigration program that we're talking about, the visa program.
So today, we're going to primarily focus on the L-1 visa. And I think that was important to kind of bring into this because as you were mentioning, the ABCs, people can get pretty confused. We got the H-1B and we got the other one that's often talked about, the F-1 OPT. And those are the big hot topic buttons. But that's mostly because the L-1 tends to fall under the radar because there's a lot less transparency on, how those are being given out and how many are being given out and to where they're working.
We can't even see the database, can we, of the L-1s?
No, so the transparency on that was historically a hit and miss. In Trump's first administration, they allowed Americans to actually see where they were going and to what employers. And then as soon as Biden got into the administration, that data went completely open.
Now, the USCIS has not reinstituted transparency into the L-1 yet.
No, not to where the employers are, which was really key because that's where we started to see that it was being heavily abused by the witch companies, and some of these top employers also heavily abused the H-1B visa.
Okay, let me interrupt because I want to constantly keep in mind the audience to understand this. The L-1 visa is, many, many months ago when I saw the L-1 visa, I said to somebody, I bet this is really abused. And they said, oh, I don't think so. I don't think this particular visa is abused. And I said, wait a minute, this is ripe for abuse because, well, you just explained the L-1 visa.
So you have two different types of the L-1 visa. The L-1A, which is the transfer of an executive. So that's going from one operation into a different country into another where they will be operating.
In the same company, though. In the same company. So you have company A. You have company A, and they, of course, probably bring in a lot of H-1Bs and anybody else that they can, green card holders from India, China, wherever, but it's always going to be India most of the time. And instead of, because there's an H-1B cap that is abused, right, truthfully, but it is abused, but there is an H-1B cap. And so if they can't get their H-1Bs, then they can go and default to the L-1, correct?
And it is a preferred visa as well, because unlike the H-1B, not that the prevailing wage isn't gained horribly, but there is no wage requirements with the L-1 visa.
So what this is set up ostensibly for an American company that's got foreign, overseas operation, and they have obviously foreign citizens working for them in these countries. It could be Germany. It could be France. I don't know, Venezuela. And they have an executive there or highly skilled worker or whatever, and they need to bring that person over. It's just really an intercompany transfer from one office to another, but the office is foreign. But they don't have to meet any of the requirements like that they have to advertise for an American worker, which is only for perm. It's not for H-1B. We don't have that protection for that. They don't have to hit prevailing wages. They just say, we need one of our employees. Is it only for executives? Is there any limit to the kind of...
No, and that's how it's been defrauded in the past. So you could be a warehouse manager. You could be a product manager. All you need is to say that you are in charge of, you're in a position that is over others.
Okay. So you're in a position which is just almost any position, except for the guy that cleans the toilets. Everybody's got a boss.
And that's L1.
Right. So then they request an L1. By the way, there is no upper limit as to the number of L1s that can come in the United States.
Correct.
So, ladies and gentlemen, do you think that I was justified in thinking that this was going to be a massively defrauded visa program? It's a natural. If I were going to be a criminal, this is one of the first places I would do it. Now, you're bringing, though, to light something so explosive. So I do want to just set this up because we've talked about this in great detail. Amanda's investigation, because she is a bloodhound. You can't hide anything. You can't run fast enough to stay in front of Amanda Louise. You are going to get caught because she will stay. She's a bloodhound crossed with a pit bull. And I'm telling you, that's a good enough picture for her. I'm not calling you a dog, even though I'm a dog lover.
No, I love it. Yeah. We only talk about the things that I'm able to expose. The amount of work we do behind the scenes and file as whistleblowers would blow people's minds. So you're
there's so much more to what Amanda's doing. But Amanda, through her investigations, kind of stumbled upon this. We were looking at other stuff, and it is another form of Indians come to America, temporary foreign workers, students who then somehow have gotten into the work visa programs, which is not supposed to be legal according to the Immigration and Nationality Act, but they made it legal, and they're here. They may have obtained a green card, but we don't know that, of course, because it should be available to us, but it's not. All this information should be available to the public. And then what they do is they create companies that facilitate more immigration, because this is such a profitable business that they think of everything. It could be trucking. It could be owning 60% of all American hotels. It can be staffing companies that are taking 50, 60, 70, 80 billion dollars out of this country. It could be certifying people so that they could be qualified ostensibly to drive, whether they're commercial trucks, 18-wheelers, whether they can speak, read, or write English, whether they've ever driven a truck like that, whether they are even legal aliens. So they set up these businesses that are highly, highly profitable, that they can stand up and pull down very, very quickly. They can bring in H-1Bs, L-1s, and everything else. And this guy came up. I don't know if he's the inventor. I don't know if he's the tip of the iceberg.
No, there's been plenty. It's just one that is so brazen to give all of his little secrets out is what's interesting. So anyway, L1B, sorry, if I could talk, is where it's just somebody who is professional with specialized knowledge that has affiliated foreign offices. And of course, one of those offices would be in the United States. So you got the two options of one manager that's transferred or a employee that has specialized knowledge that needs to.
But in this story, what we're highlighting, or what you've discovered or revealed here, exposed, is this. The L-1 visa was intended to be for, say, an American company. Hello, this is America, who has that foreign office and wants to bring over an executive. This is what they're thinking when they're writing the law that always fails whenever you push against the edges, right? Now, this man is actually selling a business opportunity to people that do not have businesses in America. They're not even Americans. They're in India, or they might be here just off the boat, so to speak. But he is selling a business to them so that they can start bringing in L-1s. It's not an ongoing concern that has this foreign office. They're actually he's selling almost like a franchise.
No, and he actually does. He sells franchises too. He sells Verizon wireless offices. Yes, so he must be licensed to help facilitate the franchising purchase of that. But the point, which you made a really good point about the fact that, this isn't about somebody who already has a business. He's not advertising what you could do with your business. He's advertising an American dream. He's advertising your way to the United States is through business. And he lists a lot of good benefits to the immigrants that would help ensure that they want that business deal, to create that business, to book his services. And it doesn't matter the success. So his agreements throughout say that it doesn't matter if we get you one or not, you're going to pay regardless. So his sell pitch is the American dream, because he can't guarantee that the business will do well, but he can guarantee you your path to the United States is through this program. And it doesn't just include the L-1 visa for them. He's advertising the L-2 as well. So that way their spouses and their children up to 21 years old can come here as well and also work legally under the L visa.
So, but is he kind of setting up a business, maybe facilitating their registering of an LLC or something? And so is it a paper business? Is it a shell company?
Yes,
I know he does do some franchises. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you. I know he does some franchises, like you just mentioned the Verizon. But is he basically saying, you come here and we will have a business set up for you. You pay us the fee. We're setting up an American business for a foreigner. And then, like, it's sort of on a silver platter. It's a package deal. He's just handing it to them.
Correct. And that's where Mahindra comes in, is that they will, they're an all-in service that will make sure that you have your own shell company created, that you'll have people that will manage it, or they would help manage it themselves. And it would create that entity for the next year that would then facilitate your move through the L-1 visa. But you have to establish the taxes, the IDs for it, that you've registered the company. And so on the face of it, it has all the paperwork like this was an established business, which is what they're selling. But really, it was just created in order to make sure that L-1 visa could get approved, which it does have, requirements in different phases to prove that it is a legitimate business. But by the time that it gets to those other phases where you have to prove, that it's, brought value and that it's an existing business, you're already 2 to 3 years in and you're already here and you and your family are already on these L visas. So at that point, he's hands off. He got you in.
Who owns the business? Because the business owner or the entity is supposed to be bringing in this manager in their foreign office in India, right? And there's supposed to be this American company that needs to bring that person in. But is the person he's selling it to, that's not the owner of the business, the LLC? Oh, so he just sets up a brand new business, and is it under his name or?
It's under Mahindra Associates.
Okay.
They're
so
the
Mahindra may have dozens or hundreds or who knows how.
They have well over 30.
And they're just getting started. And then he finds somebody who wants to come in, and he so graciously hires them and brings it, which defeats the entire purpose of this. Isn't this just fraud without adding any more information to it or any more egregious acts? Isn't this utterly being contrary to what the purpose of the visa is for? Isn't it illegal?
Well, I'll add on so Mahindra, and it's all on the same page. They say that they are a immigration and investment migration consultancy firm team of consultants with in-depth knowledge of the immigration industry. A team of successfully disposed migration and resettlement solutions to hundreds of satisfied clients. But when you get into their agreements, Article 2 down 2.3, it starts to say, the client understands and acknowledges the fact that consultant is not an investment advisor or tax attorney or legal consultant or immigration attorney at law. So really, what they're selling is just the American dream. And they have all these agreements to make sure that they can't get sued because they know that they're not legally allowed to give in immigration. So they cannot, unless you are an immigration attorney or you are a registered agent with the USCIS, you're not supposed to be facilitating the immigration paperwork and advice that they're giving. But that's what they're doing.
So all he does here is he puts a disclaimer. Like, I break into a home and I put up a disclaimer. I am not a home invader and I'm not robbing your home. And that's supposed to make the illegality of breaking into a home and robbing a home. But you have plausible deniability.
Correct. Yeah.
You know, the other thing is you can go to these websites, and I want to let Mahendra know that Mahendru, excuse me, know that these websites have all been photographed or screen captured. So you don't bother taking them down because we have all of the evidence. Amanda Louise is also not just a pit bull and a bloodhound. What is a picture of a thoroughly thorough dog? I can't think of one right. That's certainly not my golden retriever. Anyway, but if she is nothing if she is not thorough. So don't bother taking down this website because we have all the evidence, and she is. Are you putting this into the Department of Justice?
I am, of course.
Good girl. Good girls. Oh. So we have all these screenshots, but I wanted to say they're based in Chantilly, which is pretty near me. I'm in Northern Virginia, and they have multiple websites. Here's one called Startup, and then there's the Mahendru. What's it called? Mahendru Associates. Mahendru Associates.
Yeah, I apologize. Keep saying Mahendra, but Mahendru.
I know. I'm trying to, yeah. Anyway, Mahendru, and they do, when you go to W&D on this story that's not in this format, you will be able to see the links because you can go to their websites. And which I did. It was very, very informative. So I would suggest everybody go to their website and share this video and clips and screenshots around Amanda's work. Please credit her at WorldNetDaily because she's extraordinary. So, Amanda, the money path you have here. How does the money path work?
And it's so interesting because they actually have their account information posted, so that way you can. I was like, I don't feel comfortable posting that. I will exit out if other people find it that they posted it publicly themselves.
He puts his bank information, all of his bank information. It's literally on the page on his website. He gives here's how you send me money. He wants to facilitate this, and I guess he doesn't think anybody who's not associated with the immigration industrial complex and all this is going to see this information. But I mean, would you ever put your bank account number?
No, but maybe it's honor amongst thieves. Maybe it's honor amongst fraudsters because it's crazy.
Oh, by the way, we have to say allegedly because, this to me seems pretty open in case, and I am accusing someone of, at the very least, manipulatively, with malintent, subverting our immigration system, our goodwill that benefits so many in the world that they are taking advantage of America. I will say that they are allegedly committing crimes.
We'll see after I submit
We'll see after the Justice Department gets back to you. Okay, money path. Allegedly, tell me what they're doing.
So the options were very eye-catching for me, and they're pretty similar, whether you go to Mahendra or if you go to the Startup Business Bureau, but they accept cash on the counter. So you can drop off some cash. You can Venmo them. You can send it in WhatsApp. It was quite interesting. Those don't seem like, real legitimate business ways to get money. And again, just posting that their own bank information out there willy-nilly was interesting as well. And so they also have some, terms and agreements throughout their different contracts that say no refunds. And when you paid those amounts, if they, were incorrect or they went to the wrong person, they won't refund you because that's on you.
I don't even care about the people who are trying to defraud Americans in the American legal system if they lose their money. I mean, I know that sounds a little callous, but again, you said like honor among thieves. I'm just not all that interested in that as much as that these what did you say, the money path, all of this seems to bring this company rather, into some form of disrepute, because this is not the normal way of doing business. It doesn't seem to me. Drop off your cash at my house.
See, they have what they call an introducer. So they have people that get paid twice, depending on the success, but they're supposed to bring them legitimate leads. So people who want to buy their American dream, and based off of the success and the value that they get, so Mahendru or the startup business, whatever value they get out of that person will kind of determine what kind of fee or success fee introducer.
It just hit me. So from your description, I started thinking of Ponzi scheme, and suddenly I thought, that's the next thing. It'll be multi-level marketing for Indian immigration into America. And what they're doing is essentially selling. That's how it seems to me, Mahendru. Okay? It's not even I'm not even alleging anything. I'm just characterizing it. It seems like they are profiting off selling visas in America. This is just so flagrant. Now imagine, remember in the old days, you probably don't because you're too young, of multi-level marketing, where what they would sell is this to the people that they would ask for the fee, and they would all join in, and the purpose was at the top, he would get a commission on everything down through either all or several layers of the multi-level marketing. The next guy would too. Everybody they bring in, they would get a percentage of everything that they bring in dollar-wise. Then everybody next rung down would get a percentage of everything, but the other ones above them would. And that's the reason it was called multi-level marketing, is eventually, if it ever hits a hiccup, like we would like to introduce into this the scams that are going on with our immigration system, if it ever stops growing, everybody at the bottom loses all their investment. But doesn't this seem like it's right? Because they're very ingenuitive when it comes to coming up with new scams, that this could be eventually like a multi-level marketing company.
Absolutely. And there's a lot of secrecy of who their third parties are that are involved. They whenever you sign the contract, there's so many pieces in it that say that you won't do this, you won't talk, you won't interact with our third parties. So that's really interesting. And so this was the first case where it's just all tied to one entity that I can confirm. Although what I will say is that the address that they're sharing as a lot of other shell companies, not necessarily tied to Mahendru, but a lot of other companies that are using that address to file for H-1B. So there's a lot of that. So there is some, a crossover for other people being involved. But things like the Miles Education investigative report that we submitted and put up, in that case, it was willing participants from the universities that were participating. So it wasn't just foreign nationals that were creating a business model out of our immigration system, because in that case, they were operating from India. It's the fact that they are, working with U.S. universities to help collude the system and use a student visa, not for education, but for an employment. And so that's where you get is that this whole system is so profitable for even the middle. So when you think of that Ponzi scheme, it really in itself, the whole system is a Ponzi scheme. So you have the rubber stamping of from the DOL, because they're part of this as well. They're getting fees. The UCIS is getting fees out of this. That's clearly not going to the Americans. But
that I would say this that the more I'm sure we have many bad apples still in the Department of Labor and the United States, the USCIS. I'm quite sure that, but I want to make sure, just a caveat here, that we know that the Trump administration is attempting to root out this wicked, nefarious project of the immigration industrial complex.
And you see hear a lot of that from UCS, the crickets from the DOL.
Yeah, the DOL is probably not completely bought into ending the corruption. But so there are people, we assume, still in those divisions, and maybe Homeland Security Department. I don't know. But we don't want anybody to think that we're accusing the Trump administration and their appointees. We have to wait and see on everybody. But what this is really doing is bringing money to this Mahandru and to these two attorneys too, right? Aren't there attorneys connected with this eventually?
Yes. So he mentions that he has partner lawyers throughout that you could pay additional consultation fees to meet with as well.
And then there's the third-party referrer marketers. Anyway, you can read the details. We're being obscure. We don't want to go down into the weeds too far. Go to WorldNetDaily. It's on the front page in the block on our front page that's dedicated solely to America First Immigration, and all of Amanda's stories are in there. Tell me what this white labeling is.
So with the white labeling, what you catch throughout their different terms and agreements is this open-ended pricing scheme where pretty much the fee can be added on to multiple different ways. And so when you're signing that, you're agreeing to pay an unknown actual amount. You're also agreeing to pay all of the fees that will go into filing the immigration paperwork. You'll pay any lawyer fees that are an additional, but then they're adding on administrative fees and contact fees, and that you're agreeing that they're going to be allowed to make the decisions on your behalf without considering what you want, and that may also bring in additional fees. So that's kind of where you're getting that there is no actual fees because it will never stop. They're going to see where they can get the most money out of.
Out of the immigrant the Indian who wants to come here. Why the loophole is so easy to sell. You say the L-1 new office rule allows a foreign company with no U.S. presence to transfer a manager here to start one. If the company shows a real relationship abroad, a lease space, and a plan to grow, USCIS can approve a one-year starter. There's no annual cap, no required wage floor. At the 1 year mark, the company must prove the role is truly executive or managerial, not a founder doing everything. This is where many paper offices fail. It is also where the seller has already been paid. So the USCIS has approved some kind of a program that allows this 1 year starter, like, we'll let you come into the country. By the way, once you get in, how likely is it? We can't even get deported gang rapists and murderers from our country. And with 750,000 illegal Indian aliens here, and upwards, that's probably small, but 50 million illegal immigrants or aliens in total, how likely is it that they're going to be caught or sent home if this program isn't up to snuff?
Right. And so it's interesting that the way that loophole works, they're advertisements and their services that get expanded in like whatever you're wanting to build out of the box, want to buy a franchise, they're all tailored around that loophole. For them to build your business, they'll manage it for a year. And, you'll start making, X amount too. Like they're promising all this money that they'll be making so that they get investment. And so within that year, after they've established that business and, able to prove that you can come there as the foreigner, then you'll meet that threshold at that year mark. But the whole point of it is that with that new office, no U.S. presence, is that they're creating that U.S. presence for you. So that way you can go ahead and get that visa, and they'll manage it while you hands off and getting ready to,
Do you
enjoy.
have any idea how big the fees are here that we're talking about? Because it would depend upon what kind of company they're going to set up here in America.
They make it seem like these LLCs are just the owner of these this program, the consultant, is made millions, and so he's advertising as if these companies will be making it. But based off of what I've seen, he creates the shells, and eventually, is not long after, they're shut down. So I don't know how successful he really is on getting people here. And he might be, very successful at getting them here, but getting them to technically qualify for that first year, I highly doubt it. They don't look very successful to me when they're already showing as inactive.
It goes on. It says, what Congress and auditors, why the loopholes are so easy. It says there's no annual cap, no required wage floor. At the 1-year mark, the company must prove the role as executive or managerial. Already said that. Not just a founder doing everything. But this is where the paper trail not the paper trail, the oversight seems to fail. That there's just not enough people and not the ability to oversee this kind of program. We're actually in this never-ending expansion of alphabets, because I literally made a list once. It starts with A and goes down to W. There's no Z or X visa, but I think it's virtually and no L or something like that. But anyway, it's virtually every other alphabet has multiple letters associated with it. Like there's so many H visas, but there's A, B, C, D. It just goes down through the whole alphabet. How can we're setting up a system where in the federal government, we can never keep up with the number of people required to oversee this many accounts. And since so many of these accounts are established, or visas are established based on their intention to thwart the system and go around the legal parameters, it seems like we could never even hope, no matter how many people we hired, to actually be able to execute the law and deport those that came here illegally or under false pretenses. It's a losing battle. Why don't we end? It's costing us billions just to manage a system that's unmanageable.
Right. And you bring up a good point on the numbers. In 2021, which we'll give it, credit that was during COVID times. Historically, it's been, those L-1 visas have stayed, under about 40,000. And then here we have in 2022, 2023, and 2024, where the L-1 visa alone is nearly 80,000. Now, the L-2 visas, so they're also allowed to legally work, are even higher than that. But the UCIS would have to process every single one of those. And with the history of the L-1 visa, it has been brought to Congress many times. In fact, in the early 2000s, it was brought to Congress that after they had done an audit at one of the American embassies, they found 90% fraud within the L-1 system. They determined that the L-1 visa was becoming a vehicle to offshore jobs. These are managers that aren't here to manage the U.S. work. You're here to manage the offshore team for that onshore-offshore model. And there is nothing in our system that protects Americans from that. And even though they found 90% fraud in those L-1 visas, there's been no substantial changes to prevent any further fraud or do any further auditing. It just got, under the rug. It's okay.
What do we have to do? We have to end the L-1 visa. Is that it? Because
to me personally,
we do. And I always want to caveat that when I say we should end this or set up this system to like crush the illegalities, the fraud, and the criminal conspiracies involved with it. Let's just say bottom line, there is only one way to end this. When you have, like, okay, this is probably a bad example to give. I was going to say like an infestation in your house. Like there's certain kinds of critters that get in your house where you literally can't, it's just like they're always opening up a new battlefront, right? If you had termites, you could have termites in all different areas of your walls, your structure, whatever, and to try to ever extinguish that infestation. I'm trying to think of infestations and parasitic relationships. Sounds so disgusting because it's usually having to do with undesirable insects or, pests of some way. And it's not about the people. It's really about the economy. It's about India. It's about the immigration industrial complex, the India lobby, and all of the offshoots. It's sort of the roots, I guess you could say, which is more neutral, that are, if you ever had a garden or a tree in a garden or some kind of growth that no matter how many times you sprayed it, you cut it down to the ground, you dug it up, it's bamboos like this. They say once you introduce bamboo into an area, say your garden, it's going to eventually, I don't know how fast it does it, depending on the bamboo type, I guess. You cannot end bamboo. Bamboo says, I'm there forever. And you can continually try to uproot me, but I will always leave a root system underneath there that will pop up everywhere else on your property. So that's better than using parasites or vermin.
I don't know. I was thinking poison ivy as soon as you were talking about the
poison
roots.
ivy. Yeah, there are all kinds of things like that, persistent. And but you know what? Those are plants without intention and minds, and human beings that want to subvert our immigration policy and our demography and our demographics, our way of life, our culture, our economy, our workers' right to work within a labor pool that's comprised of Americans. All of these things, the people that come in are not taking into consideration that their love is not America. I don't expect it to be. But they're not coming in. And I guarantee if you said to 1,000, 100,000, or 5 million, excuse me, look, you're harming America. This is really bad for America. You're putting Americans out of work. What do you think they would say?
Well, this is where I like to bring it back to the facts. It's a country that has, 1.4, 1.6 billion people. That's 5.5 people for every American. They do not have enough jobs. And even if they do have a job, they're making maybe $2,000 a year. When they see an opportunity to go to a country that is so easy to take advantage of, that they can make hundreds times more than what they can make in their own country, even if they got here illegally for 1 year and made cash, a general minimum wage for 1 year, that's enough to go back home and live very happy. But then they have this pressure from, their parents and their grandparents that you need to support us, like we have with the trucker case, where the family's more worried, not about him going to jail, but the fact that he's not going to be able to send remittances home. And so you have all this pressure where there's no jobs in India. Everybody's fighting because you're fighting 1.6.
Because their economy is a wreck.
It is.
Let's be clear about that.
The population is of working age. So that's 60% of 1.6 billion people that need jobs.
And they don't have infrastructure. They don't have roads. They don't have a clean environment. They have virtually no regulation. It's a suicide trip for some to even drive in India. It's so dangerous there. There's nothing that would facilitate. They don't even have utilities and water, irrigation and plumbing and across the country. They do not have a system or a country that is set up to be a prosperous, innovative, cutting-edge tech, high-tech society, because they don't even have toilets everywhere. They don't even have toilets everywhere, let alone roads and the energy system of energy, electrical across the country, phones across the country. They don't have any of that. I mean, they don't. No, they do have phones in India. I didn't mean to say it that way. I'm saying that it's very low grade and their education system is horrendous there.
Right. And so you have that mass population and you have a system that's easily defrauded or to come here illegally, because there's millions being made in middlemen in India that have poster boards to say, use our system to donkey your way into the United States illegally. And people are willing to pay that because there's no way to make the kind of money that they need to make to survive. There's no jobs.
It's more than that. It's more than that. We can't look at it as just an issue of immediacy. Okay. I would like to make more money. Firstly, a lot of these people that come in the donkey route, which is, these 750,000, or someday we may find out it's in the millions of illegal Indians here, illegal alien Indians. They've paid tens upon tens of thousands of dollars to fly across the world and land in different places and get phony documents or immigration documents from a new country so they can facilitate coming to the United States or being donkeyed across the southern or now the northern shore. The northern border is much worse because there's so many also Indians going into Canada and Muslim Brotherhood. So a lot of them paid a lot of money. This is not a play for, I want to become prosperous, and most of them necessarily going back to India to live high on the hog because they've got so much money in their back pocket. This is a generational thing. What they're looking to do, or at least a significant portion of them, is to come here and set up these dynasties that only hire within their family, is to continue to grow this family network, is to connect with others within their same caste and family across the country. Remember, this is a coast-to-coast program. The immigration industrial complex is from the Atlantic to the Pacific. And their planning, or their intentions, their plans, when I say they're planning, this is something that is working out, has been working out for 25 years. It goes back farther than that, but this is when it really put on the steam. To build India in America. That's what it is. When you see 90-foot-tall idols, golden-headed monkey war gods in Sugar Land, Texas, just down the street from an evangelical Christian church, they've got to drive by an idol every time they go to church or go to school or work. This is setting roots into the country.
Yes.
And nobody, not one American that I know of, has voted for this. Our politicians are being duped. They're being made fools of. This is a scam. Modi is playing all of you. If you're a politician, a governor, a legislature in a state, if you're an AG in a state, by the way, we should do this next, Amanda Louise. We need to do a special AG edition of America First Immigration, because I'm going to tell you right now, the Laken-Riley Act, according to Amanda's investigations, opens a door for every AG in this country to bring suit against the federal government, and I mean a friendly suit against the federal government, because they have not been enforcing immigration law, still are not, because it's practically impossible to get everything done at once. I understand that, President Trump. If you happen to watch this, I'm not criticizing you. But I will say this, that this is migrating a nation enclave within a nation that's putting Indians whose loyalty is to India, their tribe, their caste, and Hinduism, which is Indian, and put them in Congress, make them mayors, put them in the Department of Labor, USCIS, put them in alphabet agencies all over the country. And then now what we have is a ready-made minority class that comes in. The greatest privilege on earth should be to become an American citizen. They come in and they get off the plane and they say, I'm an oppressed minority. Give me a hand up because I'm not white. So give me an SBA loan at special rates, or don't do a credit check, or give me, better provisions. So we're importing people that are using our affinity for preventing underserved communities from being, less successful. And they're using the systems that were invented and designed to help Black Americans historically.
And taken away from our actual,
Citizens.
Citizens that it's meant to go to. And disadvantaging them even further. It's insane. I completely agree. And the India government is 100% for it. It's encouraged for you to come and brain drain or send remittances. They have that knit program, so that way those overseas citizens of India are contributing back to India, and they need the world to do that. And that's what gets us so high up and angry. It's not because we dislike or hate Indians. It's because there's been a model here to just purposely steal from Americans in every way possible. And it's unfortunate that our government and obviously we're seeing change, but it is allowed it since the first Bush administration. Nobody's been here to protect the American people. And that's why we are working so hard to expose the truth.
During the beginning of this second term of the president's second term of office, because we know that if we don't take, if Congress, if the administration, if the various agencies do not take decisive, and there is so many things that they need to do and address and do it correctly, we don't need a comprehensive immigration reform bill. All that is code for is, how do we set it up so that more people can be emigrate to America and change our demographics, build up the Democrat Party. That's what that's code for. The comprehensive immigration reform, which always includes amnesty for all the people that have come here illegally and deliberately, gamed the system. No amnesty. No, we need to shut down the system. We are for a moratorium. I would say the moratorium, I don't know if you could continue it beyond Trump if there wasn't a Republican that comes into office later. But if Congress had what it takes, I won't mention it, they should put together a 20-year moratorium right now. 20-year moratorium, pass it, it's over. The gravy train is done with. No more. And maybe by an executive order or a special thing that could put in just a limited, like, say we need to bring in some of the horribly oppressed and persecuted Christians in India. Let's just say, give an example, or in Nigeria, or in the Congo, or in Syria. And we say, look, we need to bring in oppressed Christians because we're a Christian nation and we have a duty, and we're bound to do that. Then Congress could pass a law and say, here's an exemption to this 20-year moratorium. It's just to bring in the persecuted Christians out of Nigeria or Sudan or Somalia or Syria. Bring those in. But the moratorium stays in place. But if we can't get Congress, which we know we can't, because they don't have what it takes, then we need to have an executive order. And we need to have regulations put in right now.
We need something that's going to actually protect our country. Because right now, we're just letting other countries come in and take over America. What is it going to be like in 20 years if we continue that route? We will not be the same America that I grew up in, that you grew up in,
or my mother,
or you've served my country for. It won't not be the same.
No. And we could go on. I know I could. And I know you can't, because we've had hours and hours of conversations about this. Let's bottom line this. What Amanda has done is she has identified a scheme to use L-1, which is intended to bring employees from foreign offices into the home office in America, which would be just sort of like, oh, I'm transferring from one office to another. I had a cousin, or it was my husband's cousin. They worked in the Indonesian or Philippines office. I can't remember. I think they went from one to the other, but they worked for they were Americans. He went because you got to go up the hierarchy in these multinational corporations. You've got to be willing to relocate and live in these other places. And then you get your stripes or your notches in your belt. You come back and you get a big promotion after like 10 years of doing this. That is what L-1 would be for if it was an Indian or Indian or Chinese, I guess, coming into America because they actually work for a company. Here, they're creating, I'm going to call it a fake company. This is like a franchise, a business opportunity company that says, we'll set up a company for you. We'll run it for a year. We'll get the historical paperwork background. We'll file taxes the first year. We'll set up your payroll. We'll have a little office that might be at somebody's garage or one of those offices where you just rent a desk and you get a receptionist answering the calls.
A lot of them are at house at that address that I sent you. Yeah,
yes.
Desk is house, like a house.
I think I'm going to take a day trip and go by and stake it out. Anyway, just letting you know, Mahandru, I'm going to be seeing you soon. Anyway, so they set up this, but they have to have they have to bake it, right, for a year before the L-1 can come in.
Mm-hmm.
And then the L-1 is really the whole purpose of this. That immigrant is so that they can bypass H-1B and any other system that they can't get through on. So now they can just come to work for this fake company. And then once he goes to work for the fake company, what happens though? What if the company goes out of business?
They don't make any guarantees of that. So it's.
But what about the status? Forget. I'm not worried about the L-1 visa crook that came in. I'm talking about what happens to their status if the business that they came in on an L-1, can they apply for a change in status?
Oh, absolutely.
This is crazy. So they can go and send $40,000. I'm making up a number. It could be hundreds of thousands for some, 10,000 for another. Who knows? They send it over to somebody, an Indian here in America, say, set up this business for me. I'm going to pay my fees. In 1 year, you're going to be running this company that doesn't make anything, doesn't produce anything. They're just on paper. They're a shell company out of Mahandru's house or somebody else's, office, post office box kind of a company. And we will run the company. We'll bring you in. We'll bring in your wife. We'll bring in your minor children up to 21. And you will come here. And then in 2 years, we can fire you. We can go out of business, whatever. And you will, in the meantime, because you know what's going to happen, be filing for a change of status from L-1 because you've left the company that brought you to America. But now you can apply for an H-1B or any other kind of. And then you apply immediately when that's granted for a green card.
Now, remember, their spouse can work too. So if they're working towards getting that H-1B, then once they get that H-1B, then the spouse that came here on the L-1 can then become an H-4. So it's a whole system. It's a circular migration.
It's selling citizenship because ultimately, now I know it doesn't all end up in citizenship, thank God. But ultimately, the goal is to either become a permanent legal resident and get perm status, which means that they are legally allowed to work in the United States and they don't have to work for a particular company. They don't have to be in school, blah, blah, blah. They can permanently do that unless there is a cancellation of their visa. Then they are here forever. And they build up the family and they bear their children here. So they just created a new American family that never would have been here other than for this crazy L-1. Anyway, it's kind of overwhelming, isn't it? It's kind of overwhelming. So this is a new scam for me because L-1 and L-2 has been abused. They found that 90% of them are fraudulent. But now this thing where I'm saying I'm selling it, this seems like it's actually a new level of the scam.
I wouldn't say that it's probably new, but it's the point of this article is to draw to the attention of the fact that these are not innocent visas. We don't have a system that protects us from fraud. We don't have a system that ensures the best of the best are coming here. We do not have a system that is pro-American first. We have an easily exploited system that is the Swiss cheese of loophole that has many people at every little step of the way that are taking their cut to ensure that you get into this country and you get your piece of the American dream. And in none of that is any money or any thought or any process considering what is best for the citizens that are born, that have lived here, that have served this country. None of it is about Americans. It is about selling the American dream because some people in political positions believe that the American dream belongs to the world.
And it does not. The American dream belongs to Americans and Americans only. And if you come to America, you may be able to achieve that dream if you become an American. But the American dream is not for 8 billion people. You know what the American dream should be? We should be franchising it out to other countries. We'd have to say to Canada, stop being idiots. We'd have to say to Brits, stop being idiots. We'd have to say to China, stop being genocidal, totalitarian, dictatorial communists. We'd have to say to India, why don't you care about your people here in India and help lift them up rather than export supposedly your best and brightest? I mean, we could export the